Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production channel here at YouTube, and welcome to episode number 13 of Album of the Week. So, for this 13th episode, which this is actually the first actual episode of the new year, since last week there wasn't, and probably because of I wanted to give it a break. So, it's back. So, what is this week's spotlight? The first spotlight of 2018? Metal on Metal by Anvil. And since I guess in like a few days here or so, on like the 19th, which of course is Friday, is the release of Anvil's new album titled Pounding the Pavement, and of course I decided might as well spotlight an Anvil album, since I've been listening to a hell of a lot of Anvil, probably because of the new album. And I'm just going back to here, but the album I definitely decided to spotlight is, of course, the classic here, which, of course, is Metal on Metal. I don't think you really need a review to kind of tell you how much of an album this is a classic. I don't think you need to hear it from me. This is definitely one of those albums where it's influential for one of the many reasons. This album came out right when the new wave of British heavy metal movement was still very popular, was still at the height. You still had Iron Maiden, you still had Saxon, you still had Tigers of Pantang. Wait a minute, they actually released kind of a not so very good album that same year, but this definitely was kind of in that same sort of height with albums such as Spellbound. Just very much that raw, sort of very honest, kind of just real heavy sound. Really, you're going to hear a lot of similarities with a lot of the new wave of British heavy metal bands, while Anvil's debut, Hard and Heavy, was definitely kind of, to me, very typical of what you expect from like the Canadian rock bands such as Moxie, Tease, or April Wine. On this album, Metal on Metal, they definitely brought in a lot of that British influence, and I think every song here, like, Scenery, Heat Sink, Jackhammer, Tease Me, Please Me, the title track, which is a freaking metal anthem, and definitely should be one of those, like, call to arm type of songs. Of course, you got like Mothra, pretty much taking a lot of inspiration from like the Godzilla and kaiju kind of stuff, which Mothra. Anyways, that other tracks on here, even the song 666, which is just definitely one of the earliest thrash tracks, definitely very that and Fast as a Shark by Accept are definitely up there. There really is no other words to put in to kind of describe how influential this album definitely is. It's definitely one that I listened to a hell of a lot when I first found it. Just killer stuff here. Of course, then we definitely bring up the sad fact that the album was definitely produced by the late Chris Tsangarides. Tsangarides, I think that's basically the way you're supposed to pronounce his last name. Sadly passed away on January the 7th due to heart failure and lung infection. Just looking up the cause of death on the Metal Archives here in the RIP section. Just real sad. Always liked the guy's production on here. He definitely made Anvil sound heavy, raw. He definitely, in a way, I think was the ingredient that definitely, for Anvil's success here, their early success, definitely I think was one of the reasons for why this album is why it's still influential because of its production, which, again, giving it that new wave of British heavy metal, sound to it, which, bringing up Tigers of Pantang, Chris Tsangarides definitely produced the first two Tigers of Pantang album, and I think that's one of the reasons why I compare them, because the production here is really no different from Wildcat or Spellbound. Everything on here just has that flavor to it, and it's why it's given that extra huevos to it, that extra oomph, and why it's pounding, why it's hard, why it's heavy, and why it sounds the way that it does. Without that production, without Chris Tsangarides, I don't know how much it would sound. It probably would just sound probably no different than the Hard and Heavy album, but because of its real heavy, somewhat thick, fat kind of production, it's why it sounds the way that it is. So definitely a loss of a great producer, but definitely one that sure left a legacy. And this is one of those albums that are definitely part of that producer's legacy, and forever, just great. Anyways, just a real classic album here. I can't wait for Pounding the Pavement, which is definitely should be arriving at my door on the day of its release. Anyways, can't wait for that. But for now, so if we look back on such a classic album that is Metal on Metal. So, I don't need to say anything more. I know that everyone is listening to this album. If anyone, just definitely let me know what you thought of this album, or how much you thought of it when you first heard it back, since I know some of my subscribers are definitely from that era. Definitely let me know what you thought when you first heard it. So, until then, this is Heavy Thrasher Sam out, and I'll see you again here. Rest in peace to Chris Tsangarides. Take care.